welcome to Sexually Charged Radio on 93.3 FM. I'm Ruthie, and I am here with three co-hosts this time, and their names are...
Kat.
And...
Sheila.
And Bianca.
Hi, all of you. Do we want to do a pronoun check this time? We haven't done one in a few episodes. We'll go in the same order.
Sure. So for Kat, she and her.
So for Sheila, she and her as well.
And for Bianca, she and her as well.
And I'm Ruthie, and I will be your lone they and their for this particular episode. And we have a topic that I'm really excited about. I think we all got excited and wanted to talk about it ahead of time. Sheila, do you want to introduce the topic?
Yes, please. Okay. So our topic is, when is having a type, air quotes, racist or whatever?
Yeah, so the type could be about race, it could be about height, it could be about sexual orientation, or even gender for that point.
Yeah.
So when is it some kind of isterism? This is a topic where I'm sort of afraid that I'm going to get in trouble by talking, either for being too ridiculously liberal or for having hang-ups or for something like that. I don't know. Is anyone else anxious about this topic?
Yes.
Thank you for not leaving me alone on my shift. What makes you anxious about it?
Because I think people sort of have types and have decided that so I'll speak from, I have a type,
mm-hmm.
or I have, an ideal person who I would like to date, and that could be a little, not cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that. I just know that that's, an ideal for me.
Gotcha. Are either of you anxious about it, or no? It's okay to not be, as well.
I mean, personally, I feel like my type sort of deviates from a societal ideal, or some people's ideas of a societal ideal. So in that, I feel more comfortable for some weird reason. But then I also notice my type changing day to day nowadays, and that's sort of moving towards a more diverse direction, or encompassing more diversity, and I'm really excited about that. And so I'm actually really excited to just talk about this topic and see what other people have to say about it.
Yeah.
I'm on the same page as Kat. I think I'm more passionate about this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not to say I'm more passionate about you guys. I'm not as anxious.
You can be passionate about us, Sheila. That's okay.
What I meant is I don't mean that. Oh, I'm the most passionate. I meant that I'm more passionate than I am anxious.
Ah, cool.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
I can see why people would be anxious to talk about this, though, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, maybe if people do feel can we talk about how we feel anxious? Okay.
Yeah.
So I personally feel anxious about this because I'm afraid I'll come off as so liberal about it that people will either just not value what I have to say, or think that it's fakey, or think that it's preachy, or that it's more about being PC than how I authentically feel, or because I think at the root of it, it may be related that I'm just really slutty. Where's your anxiety?
That's amazing.
Thanks.
My anxiety is also sort of being called inauthentic and not being true to myself or what actually matters in life. Mm-hmm. Having an ideal person doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Because the person matters.
Yes.
The type doesn't really.
Yes. But, don't we all have things that catch our eye?
Yes.
Which suggests a type or a group of types, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's some sort of visual criteria that people have in one way or another, even if it, and if you think you have no, or sometimes I think, I have no criteria. But then I think, about maybe more extreme things, if somebody has a very large age difference from myself, how do I feel about that? And, or if somebody has a very different political leaning, which sometimes you can tell visually because folks are wearing flags about that, literally or figuratively, how would that work for me? So, if the two of you are excited to take off on this topic, what makes you excited and really raring to go on this one?
I just have a lot of personal experience of it kind of being done upon to me. So I always feel that I present very racially ambiguous. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of whatever race someone wants to see me as.
Interesting.
And so with that comes interesting experiences. So I've had people tell me, like, oh, you know, like, I've been on a date before, and someone's been like, you know, you're really great and all, just don't really date Asians. And I'm like, well, not full Asian.
Mm-hmm.
And why does my qualities that attract you to me have to be diminished due to the color of my skin?
So they're already out with you. They're already out doing something date-like with you. And then this, I'm so, like, I just crossed my arms. I'm so angry right now. So you're good enough to go hang out with, but not good enough to date.
Or sometimes I'm not Asian enough.
Oh, okay.
I've gotten that too.
All right.
Yeah. I've even gotten the, oh, you're really pretty because you don't look Asian.
Oh,
which
okay.
poses so many issues. I'm flailing my arms around. And you should not flirt with someone, compliment someone by putting down another group of people.
Yeah.
That is not okay with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And please leave.
Now, 3 of us have our arms crossed, and all of us have at some point sat back in our chair and, like, kind of, like round our eyes a little bit. Yeah. I'm sorry that this has happened. And I'm going to guess that at least some of those people are white people. So on behalf of them, I'm sorry that that's happened as well.
Okay.
No.
It's
not okay, but thanks for being gracious.
In my mind, I also pictured those people as white people, and so I also, like, apologize, and I just, like, became so aware. I'm a white person, for those folks that are listening. I guess you can't, or maybe can't tell, I don't know, but I just thought I'd put it out there and just say that I'm, like, really recognizing my own privilege, because I've never really had anyone say, I won't date you because you're white, because, like, race isn't as much of a hot topic, I think, for white people. That's a privilege that...
Or they won't tell you because of the power dynamic going on.
Or maybe they won't tell me because of that.
Yeah. I've had a couple people tell me that, and I thought, that makes sense. Because I was mentioning it earlier before we were on air, but I had one person say, like, you know, we can be friends, we can flirt with each other, but I've learned not to date white people because white people will always let you down in the end.
Wow.
And I was like, well, that is sad, and I suspect it is also a truth, and or close enough to truth. We might as well consider it one. Although I would put my money on a truth, and so that makes sense to me. I was all right with that, and I was like, okay, so people in my group have ruined this for all of us, all of my group. And so I should not expect to be an exception.
Mm-hmm.
But that feels different to me than my friend who wouldn't date anyone who's a person of color because they only date white people, and it's like a policy.
So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So this was a number of years ago when I was flipping through a dating app with someone who had been a close friend of mine for years. And she was like, hey, or I was like, hey, you know what would be fun is if I try to guess your type on Tinder, and I'll consult you before I flip left or right. But I was getting some of the people right and some of the people wrong, and I was trying to figure out the patterns in this, being a good qualitative researcher. And then finally I was like, hun, will you only date white people? Is that what I'm getting wrong? And she said, yeah, I just, that's my type. And I said, well, when your type excludes, like, huge diverse arrays of other people, like, that's racism. And she's like, no, I'm allowed to like who I like. I'm like, yes, but this crosses a line of some sort where a criteria wipes out the value of all other criteria. And then we had to have a talk about not being friends anymore, which is where I think people who are listening may or may not be judgmental of my decision. And so to me, there's a difference between a type, although maybe one might think about their types in dating history to see if that really is belaying some issues. But there's, and like, you know, I'm attracted to tall people, or I'm attracted to short people, and that does count out a lot of folks. But would you sit across from someone at a date and say, we could be really awesome together, except you're 6 inches too tall for me? Like, that to me is a problem. And more of a problem when you look at things like race. So that's that story.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's intense.
Yeah, it is intense. And it was really disappointing because
Yeah.
I felt like I really knew this person. So I had to question, like, how did I not notice this going on before? And the thing is, she's really good with a lot of think she has a lot of really good anti-oppressive philosophies, but she did not carry them over to her personal life in this way. And I found that extra upsetting and a lack of personal insight for her. And I think if the roles had been reversed, I would have, and somebody said that to me, and I thought about it, and I thought, oh gosh, maybe that is a pattern. I would be distressed to have this brought up to me, but I would also be grateful for being called on my crap.
Yeah.
And having to learn more about myself and be a better person. And for her, she's just like, no, this is my policy. So, you know.
Yikes.
Yeah. So when is it just a type? Like, what is the area where it's okay?
It's okay when you're just thinking about your friend. So to me, it's okay when you're like you have some criteria and it can apply to literally anyone.
Yeah.
So there's no cutoff. Again, I'm flailing my arms, but what I think, I could be using wrong words, but what I think with your friend situation was that there's a list of qualities they're looking for. If these qualities fall onto a person of color, then it's a no. But if these qualities fall onto a person who's white, then it's a yes. And that's where is the red flag, and that's where I don't think it's okay. Because the difference between person A and person B, they have all the qualities they're looking for. Of course, no one's perfect, but both the same qualities, both have the capabilities of satisfying your friend in what they're looking for, but they're going to choose person A just because of the color of their skin.
So I've heard people say that it's very much like sexual orientation, and if you can be attracted to particular anatomies or particular gendered ways of being, then you can have the same sort of thing with ethnicity. This feels terrible to me and not accurate, but I now that I have placed that judgment out there, I'm totally open for debate on this. How does that sound to all three of you?
Could you repeat that? I just didn't quite
So some people that I've talked to about this have likened it to sexual orientation of gender. Like there's certain genders I'm attracted to and certain genders I'm not, and that's just some sort of biological thing. There's certain ethnicities I'm attracted to and certain ones I'm not, and that's just a biological sort of thing. I see heads nodding no.
I mean, it's interesting because I can't personally relate to that. Like, I can't personally relate to only being attracted to one race or one ethnicity. And so it feels kind of funny to me. I imagine that just like that could be a thing for some people. But it sounds like with your friend, it was actually just like a lack of open-mindedness about the possibility of like exploring different people and people who don't just fit into one type than it was about having a type. Because I think you could have a type, but it doesn't necessarily have to be related to like a racial or ethnic presentation or background.
Well, and your type doesn't have to be who you date.
Yeah.
Like, this is like
definitely.
maybe like a fantasy type or something.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's who you will ever get to date, much less what one's criteria should be. And I think about the difference between like place in life or life experience and visual cues, like what you soak in about somebody with your eyes on first sight sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My type's always been, one of my types has always been guys with like bigger bodies that,
Do you mean like muscular or like
no,
husky or just
husky,
like,
like
oh yes,
bears. Like
Yes.
that's
In my mind, I was
type.
like, oh, you like bears. Yeah, so there we go.
Yeah, exactly. You knew exactly what that was for me. And I don't know what that's about, but I've noticed myself attracted to guys that are like bear-like, and you just want to give them a big old hug.
They
and
look
you
like
just want
great
them to hold you.
cuddlers.
And they are. And they're warm, and so there's something about that. And then I've also, I mean, this is completely like not even looks based, but I've noticed myself attracted to Aries, people who have the sign of Aries in the zodiac. And my like someone very close to me growing up was both like a bigger bodied and an Aries, like who's very significant to me. So so I've done a lot of like analyzing my own type and like what does that mean and all that stuff. But now, like I said earlier, it's sort of like really diversifying, and I just find myself more attracted to a person's personality, which is why I find it problematic that your friend sort of draws that line, because you're saying no to like getting to know people.
You know what? I think
being
this makes me think. I think this is what you were just saying, but maybe in slightly different words, which is the assumptions we jump to about people. So she is saying there's a set of attributes that are unique to white people and unique to everyone who's a person of color, different attributes, and that everybody in those groups will be the same. So that criteria will be okay. Because when you said that you liked bears, and they look so great to cuddle, you mentioned, and you said they are, and I thought, well, this, and I agree, but then I also thought this is a generalization. We don't actually, probably some of these bears are not great to cuddle. We don't like to
Just
cuddle.
stiff.
You know, like, oh, I don't
In my
like,
experience,
oh.
they have been.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Right, but
Yeah.
but you probably feed into other stuff too. But I felt okay with the generalization, which we all also held a belief at the same time. Like we're saying all bears are great to cuddle, but we also know there's probably some bears
Yeah,
who are not.
definitely.
But we'll just go ahead and say that and have a good laugh, and then like that'll feel good. But it's different when it's an ethnicity thing.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of that is that to the best of my knowledge, there's never been a war fought or a genocide had based on whether bears are or are not good to cuddle. Right? Like that's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
funny thought, but
Yeah.
like as humans, clearly we do something different around ethnicity because we can even take it to the extreme of we've had genocides and we have wars about the presumed attributes of a group of people
Yes.
based on ethnicity and or skin tone. Right? So in the back of my mind, there's always kind of like the vile YouTube commenters being like, yeah, but, and that sort of stuff. But clearly in our culture, we have not had the Great Bear War. And so it is different,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
You're listening to Sexually Charged Radio at the University of Guelph on CFRU 93.3 FM and online at cfru.ca.
I just had a thought too. It's like what keeps coming back into my mind is just like not all white people have the same culture, because there is that like the factor of
Yeah.
culture being like a
Yeah.
huge thing in terms of finding a mate and like if you want to have kids, raising kids and that whole thing, and the pressure too
Yeah.
from your community and from your family.
Well, I think if you said all white people are the same in North America, a certain percentage of people would be like, yeah, probably. But white people would be like that. And then if you said that in Europe, people would be like, no, there's lots of different countries going on here and
Yeah.
lots of different cultures. You
Exactly.
Know?
So
Which there is too in the States and in Canada. But
yeah, there's lots of variability, like within person to person, even if they're in the same culture. But like to say that all white people have the same attributes, and like we're just like not taking anything into consideration, like no factors into
Yeah.
consideration. I mean, I don't know. I'm Serbian, so I understand how that might be something that I like may on some level look for in a mate, but I mean, there's lots of white people who aren't Serbian and who are, you know,
Yeah.
all
I mean, I
different.
tend to look for some kind of shared experience or understanding of the world, which does not mean we have to have had the same life path, but somehow we've arrived in some similar politics or things that are different enough to intrigue each other, but at the core have similar key values.
Yeah.
I like that.
And so for me, that often means looking for other people who are LGBTQ identified in some way. Although, you know, I could, in theory, absolutely date people who are cis and straight. Like, there's no reason not to, as long as, well, I guess they probably wouldn't be seeing me as non-binary, so maybe not. But as long as they're cool with that, then there's no reason not to. But that has not worked well for me.
Mm-hmm.
And there are absolutely some noteworthy exceptions that have worked well. And I kept having coffee and giving it a try anyway. But I'm less likely to now than before, because I have a history of people just not getting it, right? Like, I don't want to explain or define
Yeah.
myself or my experiences to that extent, or I'm willing to do that with somebody who's also used to having to explain or define, so it doesn't feel like they didn't do their homework. We just know that we're just kind of unusual, so we explain stuff, but we're both explaining stuff. But that also feels different to me, but like, call me to task. Is it different or is it not different? From the racism thing. So if I am restricting, I'm finding that my pattern of dating partners is restricting more towards the LGBTQ, even though it doesn't have to. And certainly there's plenty of queers that, like, I'm not a good match with. We're definitely not all the same. There's no such thing as a queer community. Like, if only we were that organized and friendly. to each other. But I find myself tending away from dating other groups because of that set of experiences. How is that the same and how is that different from there being a type based on sharing whiteness?
I find it's different because you are restricting yourself from a majority that has a historic attitude of like abundance and not difficult lives.
Entitlement?
Thank you. That is the word I'm looking for. Entitlement. And I think, I mean, obviously not every white person, every straight person, or every cis person has been through like the same experience, but I think
I have an easier time with cis straight people who have experienced poverty.
yeah.
So the entitlement is different there.
Yeah, there's like an entitlement that comes naturally to white people, and like it's just like how it goes. And like straight people, I feel like that could probably be also the issue there. So I think it's different when you are favoring a minority or over a majority who has experienced entitlement most of their lives.
That makes sense and feels good also. So thank you for both of those going well together. I don't know. So thinking about our own types, how are we feeling about that now at this point in the conversation? Like your type sounds pretty broad to me, Kat, like bears. Like there's some gender there's some gender in that for sure, which is fine.
Yeah.
Like we all like I'm totally at peace with people having gender things. Although I was quite late in the game as an adolescent before I really internalized that people have preferences about gender because I don't. So I lived in this utopian world where like, like it took me like embarrassingly late into my childhood to be like, no, that's a real thing for most people. So
And again, that's one of my types,
yeah.
right?
Okay, so you have other types
I
too.
do have other types.
Do you feel about like talking about any of those? Totally don't have to.
Well, I feel like I've been chatting a lot, so I'd love to hear what other people kind of have as their type or one of their types.
I definitely relate with cats. For me, though, it's
We're a bear fan club.
number one fan. For me, it's like it's the beard. I don't know. It's a very attractive feature to me, and it sounds weird when I say it, but like a gentle face. And so that's what I find. Just like a fake, like, and of course this is going off of stereotypes, like, oh, you look like someone who's nice and respectful, but like not someone who's like smoldering attractive. Is that how you would say it? Or with like cheekbones that could cut you, your jawline that could cut you, abs on abs, and so I like my friends describe it as like dad bod. They're like, you like the dad bod, and then they're like, oh, Freud. I'm like, stop yourself right now. But
so much Freud today.
oh yeah. And I've never really cut it off to like, oh, it has to be a certain race. That I've just been like, if you're nice and you have a cool beard and you're down to cuddle, why not? But what I do find interesting is that, again, being someone of mixed race, I don't want to be in a relationship with someone who's either of one half of my race, and I don't know if that am I a bad person for that. But I rationalize it to that, like, I know the cultures of both, and I wouldn't want to continue with that. And also, I'm like, I just want to learn a new culture with someone, type of thing. But again, I don't want to generalize a whole culture, but I just find that one half of my, like, so I'm half Persian and half Indonesian. And so I find that the Persian culture, the men can sometimes be a bit controlling, and I don't want that. And I am a strong, independent woman type of thing. And I have had experiences, I tried it and I just didn't like it. And same goes with Indonesian. Indonesians I haven't tried yet, but it's still, when you're exposed to both the cultures, you realize that that's not something you want. But there's to say, like, I'm not going to cut myself off if I met someone who was nice and who was cool. I wouldn't be like, I'm not going out with you because of this. I just find that I don't naturally draw there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Or perhaps a bit extra caution or something.
Yeah.
Maybe. So I feel like if somebody who was Indonesian was saying the exact same thing, or Persian was saying the exact same things about, like, I want to make sure that I'm not in a situation that has this, like, gender power disparity or something like that, your eyebrows would probably, like, express interest in that sort of situation. Yeah.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you feel like sharing type, or do you want to remain a mystery?
Oh, no, sure. I dated an half Asian, half white woman a few years ago, and really, like, loved that she was half Asian, and, like, loved learning about, like, the Japanese culture, and, like, that was something she took pride in.
Yeah, so it sounds like it brought, like, interesting positive energy to the relationship.
Yeah, and she, like, taught me not to say certain words, and I was like, great, like, this is a learning experience for me. And then recently I was dating this guy who's, like, super white, and I was like, this is not, I don't want to date a white person. And that is not to say I will not. I've dated lots of white people, but I just would, it's the entitlement. It's the, like, obviously this is mine. And, I mean, I've actually now saying that I have gone out of my way to date some Asian people, and they have been the same way. So maybe that's not a real thing. But I don't really want to, long-term wise, I don't want to see myself with a white person, but I know that you can't really be that narrow-minded. What I do, like, really want and won't waver on is nose size.
Yeah.
I would like individual with a large nose.
Yes, I love that.
Yes.
I joke that I like people with horse faces, like big nose, big teeth.
They
like
need
the whole
a huge
thing.
nose. They have seen some shit. If they have a large nose, they've been made fun of. They've been ridiculed because of that schnoz. Like, I need that in my life.
This is amazing.
I
This is probably
love
the
that.
best thing I've heard.
You're the first person I've ever met who also, like, boldly states.
Yes.
I think lots of people feel this way because Adrian Brody, but
Oh my gosh!
like,
Melt my heart.
right?
Who's
But
white, but-
I haven't seen many people. Is he? I never said that. Maybe.
Adrian Brody? No.
From The Pianist?
Yeah.
That's pianist, not penis, everyone.
Yes.
Yes.
Depends
He's
on
like
whether it's
a
Adrian
white-
Brody
like,
fan
he's-
porn or not.
And I'm sure that exists.
Babe.
Yeah, he's a total
Yeah.
babe.
The size of that nose.
Oh, it's huge. It's delightful.
You're not the first person I've heard say that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, the Aries person in my life, who I grew up with, it has a thing for people with big noses.
Everything's interconnected.
We are totally at the end of our time. So appreciation for bears and big noses and people who bring all kinds of new energy into our relationships, and thinking about punching up, not punching down when it comes to power and groups and things like that. And to think about your dating history and preferences and kind of where that's fitting into power and entitlement and stuff like that. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and thanks so
Thank
much
you.
for
So
listening
much fun.
in. Got a question for Sexually Charged Radio? Send it to asksc@uoguelph.ca. But please do note that not all questions are guaranteed a response or acknowledgement on the show. We'll let you know if your question's been selected for discussion. Your name will be omitted from the show, but your question will be read out loud if selected. This account is monitored by a peer wellness educator from the Wellness Education Center at the University of Guelph, not by the host of this program.